The South China Sea is about to become the most dangerous stretch of water on Earth. As China's naval ambitions grow bolder by the day, it's building artificial islands with military installations. And its newest carrier is prowling disputed waters. But the U.S. Navy hasn't been sleeping. In fact, they've been doing anything but that. The U.S. has been quietly developing 5 revolutionary weapon systems that could solidify the balance of power in the Pacific for the next century. These aren't your traditional weapons or seagoing vessels. They're entire systems and protocols designed for a new kind of warfare. One where hypersonic missiles scream across the horizon, drone swarms cover the sky, and electronic jamming threatens to disable targeting systems for hundreds of miles. Each one addresses a specific vulnerability in America's Pacific defense strategy that China had hoped to exploit. So, while China has focused on carrier counts and submarine numbers, the U.S. has been developing 5 systems that rewrite the rules of naval combat in ways that render traditional metrics almost meaningless. Let's dive into the arsenal that keeps Chinese military planners up at night. First, it's the AIM-170-4B gunslinger. At nearly 15 feet long and weighing 1,900 pounds, this isn't just another air-to-air missile. It's a flying smart machine that has a reach of over 300 m and can practically annihilate any aircraft or missile it touches. That's 3 times the range of the already legendary A-54 Phoenix missile that once adorned F-14 Tomcat. And it means FA-18 Super Hornets can now engage Chinese fighters before the latter even learn American aircraft are in the area. But even more importantly, the gunslinger is designed to be the first line of defense against supersonic missiles far away from the U.S. military installations. The development of this weapon represents one of the Navy's most clever adaptations in decades, heralding the SM-6 interceptor. The SM-6 surface-to-air missile had previously been protecting ships since 2013. But someone at Naval Air Systems Command had a radical idea. Why not hang it under a fighter jet? The engineering challenges were enormous. The SM-6 was specifically designed for destroyer and carrier launches, which gave a lot of leeway on size, speed, and weight due to more bulky deployment systems that ships could use. The weight exceeded anything the Super Hornet had ever carried on a single hardpoint, as the Phoenix was 900 pounds lighter and 2 foot shorter. The aerodynamics of a 13.5 in diameter missile flying at high altitude rather than being boosted from sea level also required a complete recalculation to solve the weight issue, at least somewhat. The missile uses a sophisticated multi-ode seeker derived from the AMRAAM, but enlarged and enhanced with data link capabilities that let it receive targeting updates from any sensor in the network, such as ship radars, a wax aircraft, or even satellite. A Super Hornet can then launch from beyond Chinese radar range, turn away immediately, and let the missile find its target using data from an E-2D Hawkeye orbiting 200 miles away. The Chinese never see the launching aircraft and never get a radar lock. They only have an incoming missile suddenly appearing on threat receivers, leaving them with seconds to react. The integration with existing Navy systems make this particularly potent. Every Aegis destroyer and cruiser in the fleet already operates SM-6 missiles and has the fire control systems to guide them. Now those same ships can provide targeting data to air launch versions, creating an integrated air-sea defense bubble that extends hundreds of miles in every direction. The Navy didn't need to develop new radars, new communication systems, or new training programs. They just adapted what they already had. But the real game share arrived in June 2025 when the Missile Defense Agency published a solicitation for new wide-area effect warheads specifically designed for the AIM-170-4B. The request specified warheads using novel defeat mechanisms against hypersonic threats, suggesting exotic technologies like directed fragmentation patterns or even electromagnetic pulse effect. These aren't just bigger explosions. They're specialized hypersonic killers designed to compensate for the extreme speeds and unpredictable maneuvers of China's most feared weapons. The program is moving at unprecedented speed. Initial operational capability of the missile itself was achieved in July 2024, just months after the first photos appeared of Super Hornets carrying the weapons. By September, they were deployed operationally with carrier air wings in the Pacific. The Navy plans to acquire 200 missiles throughout 2026, with production ramping up at Rathens, Arizona facility that already builds SM-6 for the surface fleet. China can't easily counter this weapon, as its naval formations rely on layered air defenses, with engagement ranges typically maxing out around 100 to 150 miles. Their longest-range air-to-air missile, the PL-15, can reach perhaps 124 miles under ideal conditions. The AM-170 4B outranges all of them. And more importantly, it doesn't need the launching aircraft's radar to guide it all the way to the target. Plus, the missile is ultimately designed as a deterrent rather than a strike missile, which adds more security for the U.S. Navy to operate closer to Chinese waters and use its already extensive arsenal and fleet to best effect. And speaking of the fleet, the Navy's Virginia-class submarines are getting a much-needed weapons upgrade to make them punch faster, harder, and with little time for no response. We're talking about the CRAW, which stands for Compact Rapid Attack Weapon. It's an upgrade designed to make the subs fire faster and more frequently. To understand the significance of the next generation, let's rewind a bit. The Mark 48 torpedo itself contains nearly 5 decades of development that started with a simple proposition. What's needed to destroy a submarine reliably during the Cold War? The answer was speed, stealth, and fire and forget functionality. The Mark 48 ended up being one of the smartest submarine launch weapons, with a warhead that had less than 700 pounds of explosives in a 3,000 pounds casing. The onboard sonar and internal computers allow it to track its intended target, even going so as far to turn it around if it misses. But that wasn't really enough for modern weapon systems, as layered defenses and advanced maneuvering and jamming systems meant that torpedoes were getting less and less accurate. The solution is to utilize the same tried and tested strategy that's currently allowing Ukraine to hold off Russia. Smaller weapons. The Mark 58 CRAW is the next generation in development for over 20 years as the common very lightweight torpedo and initially conceived as an anti-torpedo defense system. The idea was that carriers and valuable ships could launch small interceptor torpedoes to destroy incoming threats. But the Navy quickly realized that if a 220-pound torpedo could catch and destroy another torpedo, it could certainly handle submarines and surface ships. The engineering breakthrough came from abandoning traditional torpedo design philosophy entirely. Heavy torpedoes, like the Mark 48, are essentially underwater missiles built for long range and massive warheads. The CRAW takes the opposite approach. It's more like an underwater fighter jet, trading the extreme range and payload for maneuverability and numbers. Its 6.75 in diameter is less than half of that of a Mark 48. But modern electronics and explosively formed penetrator warheads mean it can still hunt down submarines.